Hi, this is Gary D. Tonencourt from MoreThanASnapshot.com. I'd like to welcome you to the episode for our weekly critiques on 10 2 2014. And we have some great images to discuss tonight. And first, before we get into that, I'd like to talk about critiques in general and even maybe photo contests. I think getting your images critiqued for any photographer at any level is very important because the person critiquing your images will probably see things that you don't. Um, but you have to keep in mind there could be positives and negatives to having your images critiqued. The most important thing is on the negative side is don't let the critiques get you down and don't let them take away your creativity. Keep trying things, keep experimenting, and just realize that if you like the image, that's all that really matters. Sometimes when an image is being critiqued, the critiquer just has to look for flaws, or if it's in a contest, it may be comparing the image to some other really high-level image that maybe your image just doesn't match up to. So don't take it personal and don't let it take away your creativity. But there is a lot of value to having your images critiqued. I had some images critiqued recently at an image study and at a contest, and they were, even though I submitted some images that I really liked, part of the problem is you kind of get too attached to your own image and you don't see certain things, maybe because you just like the image and you don't tend to see minor flaws. Maybe I'm overlooking them, and it's nice to get a different point of view. And so it's good to have other people look at your work to give you sort of an objective view, to find things that you might have missed, or maybe it's a minor error that you can fix, and that makes your image that much better. So I think that critiques are definitely worthwhile, and you should get them whenever you can. And towards that end, if you would like to have your images critiqued, you can always join my class at MoreThanASnapshot.com, and then you could be in our group and get your images critiqued whenever you want. Alright, so let's start off with the critiques. Here we have a nice image of a father and child. And let's zoom in and take a closer look. It looks very sharp in the eyes, and the exposure looks good throughout. I like the composition, that it's a little off center. You can see here that some things were cut off, and I think that's okay because the main focus was, the child and the interaction with the father and the child. The one thing that you might have to worry about is it's okay to cut off the top of the head, but when you cut off half an ear, that can be a little bit of a problem. So you either want to try to include the whole thing, or you cut off all of it. You don't want it to look halfway done in your composition. So the other thing I notice about this image is that there's another little person back here. This could possibly be easy to fix, maybe with just a little bit of a crop. So let's see if we can take that out. Alright, so that solves that little problem. The other thing is, and this is sort of minor, is this white thing right back here. It's unfortunate that there's something bright right next to the face, because anything bright in the background can pull your eyes away from where we want to focus on. So what we could try is use the brush tool in Lightroom and take that down a notch. I'll bring the exposure down a bit and make my brush small enough to fit in the little space, and I'll paint in this area as carefully as I can and doing it quick. I also would maybe take down this white part up here, and then I can bring down the exposure and then fix anything that I messed up. So I'll use the eraser to get rid of this little edge that I messed up here. And then I'll go back to the brush and try to fix up this area here. Again, you'd want to take your time and do this right. And I'm doing it quick, and you can see that this is too dark. And we can actually see the edges. So that's not good. We're going to soften that up a bit. But right now I'm just trying to paint in all the correct areas. And again, I'm going to erase a little bit of this overspray on the jacket. Alright, now I'll come back to the adjustment and lighten that up. So it looks a bit more natural. And I just kind of took a little bit of it down. It could be darker, but I would have to spend a lot more time playing with it. If we take a look at the before and after, you can see now it doesn't quite stand out quite as much as it did before. Right. The other thing we might want to do is to brighten up the eyes of the child. So just a little bit. You don't want to overdo this. It makes it look really strange if you make the eyes too bright. So I'm just going to use a small amount, less than a third of, or around a third of a stop. Just brighten up the eyes a little bit there. And you can see here if I overdo it how weird it can get real fast. So we just want a very small amount. And we'll take another look at the before and after, and I think that's a little bit better. It's a good image overall. I like the composition and the subject. It's a great storytelling image. And you know, in any portrait, the important part is the expressions that you capture, and I think you got two great natural expressions, and really that's the whole shot. You know, great job. Just watch your backgrounds. This would have been a lot easier if you had a darker background, say something like what you had here. Alright, here we have another shot with mother and child this time. And we do have a simpler background this time, but except for this, whatever this is, a little piece of wood or something, that can easily be cloned out. I'll grab the clone tool, we'll make it a little bit bigger than the object, and then I'll just clone that right out. It does not seem to be very sharp. I don't know if it's, yeah, it's soft. It's a little bit missed focus. The other thing is it's not really overexposed, but it's very close to being overexposed on the shirt, so I would tone down the highlights just a bit. I might even add a little bit of black to give a little contrast. And the faces, especially this face, seems a little dark. Maybe I'll pull up the shadows to try to bring some detail out there. And again, I might brighten up the eyes. Just a small amount. About a third of a stop or so. And yeah, it's not bad. I think the biggest problem was the focusing is a little soft. It's nice that you had the rule of thirds, you were off to the side, but that also in this case was leaving us with a lot of empty space. You could have tried another crop, maybe something in a vertical, and the rule of thirds can still work for you if the eyes are in the third of the frame, like the eyes are here. So this is more of a square crop. Alright, we'll give that a shot and see. Yeah, that's not bad. Good job. Here we have a Photoshop before and after, and this is the before, and this is the after. And as we look at it before and after, I think definitely that there are some things that are improved. The clarity and the sharpness are definitely improved. The selective color, I'm not a huge fan of selective color, but it's okay for this shot. There are some exposure problems. You can see here in the histogram we have a large peak here. The hat is all way overexposed. I don't know if that was an artifact of the processing or if it was shot overexposed. Let's take a look at the before one and see. Yeah, it's a little bit overexposed even in the original shot, and the processing made it worse. So you have to watch your exposure, especially if you have something white in the shot. You don't want to overexpose it. I can try to bring it back as much as I can, but it's really not going to bring back the detail that's here. Again, as far as the expression, you caught some action. The child is doing something, interacting, so that part is good. Again, you always have to watch your backgrounds. The problem here is we have a merger with this pole really stands out. Maybe you could clone it out or tone it down, but this pole is a major problem. As far as the child, it looks like it's sharp, although in your processing I think that it's either been over sharpened. You can see all of the artifacting here on the face, so you don't want to over sharpen to the point where you can see all of this. Maybe if you're doing this file as a print, that level of sharpening you might be able to get away with, but on screen you don't need quite that much sharpening, and we can really see it here, so watch out for that. I think also this shot could have used some more light, especially when the person's wearing a hat. You need some fill light either with a reflector or a flash, so because the face, especially the eyes, there's no catch light in the eyes are a little dark, so I would watch out for those kinds of things. Here we have a nice portrait set up. This is like a studio type shot, a cake smash I believe, and I like the setup and the quality of the stuff you're using. That really makes a difference in the shot. It's a nice cake and stand, and we have nice decorations in the background, a simple wall and ground combination. All of that works well. I like the diagonal that you have between the cake and the child. As some people have mentioned, the cake is very dominant and very large. It may be taking over the power of the image over the child, and really the child is the or should be the focal point of the image. And so if we look at the focus, it's hard to tell whether the cake is in more focus or the child is in more focus, because it's not a very large image, so we can't get the full effect of it. I know some people had commented that they thought the cake was sharper. It's, you know, at this size it's really tough to tell if that's true or not. But the lighting on the shot, it looks pretty good. You have nice soft lighting. You have a highlight side to the face and you have a shadow side to the face. I think I would like to see a little bit more highlight and a little bit more fill, in my opinion. There is a little catch light in the eye on this side. Not seeing much on this side. Maybe it was a natural lit portrait. Maybe there's window light coming in over here. And if that's the case, a little reflector on the opposite side here would help bounce some light back in on the face on this side. And of course, the expression in this kind of shot is good, and you have a good expression, but I wonder if it's the best expression you could have gotten. I know with kids it's very difficult. It's a win anytime you get them to even look at the camera, and you did do that. The child is engaged with the camera, so that's really good. But if you can do something that sort of brings out more of the child's personality, or a laugh or a smile or something like that, that could even add more to the interest of the shot. I love the outfit, is really cool, and I think the color palette works well together. Um, the candle on the cake, it matches in pattern to what you have here. I just don't get it. It's hard to tell if it's a number or if it's an object. It kind of looks like the number 8, but it has no holes in it, or it looks like an owl. That I don't know. I don't know what it is, and so that's a little bit confusing. But overall, a pretty good job. Alright, here we have some rodeo images. And this can be really tough to do. I've done it before because a lot of these rodeos are shows that occur at night. So you have very low lighting. You're dealing with just the lighting that they are providing with their almost like stadium lighting. And it causes very slow shutter speeds, which can give you a lot of blur. Now, if you really work at it, you can use this blur to your advantage, because you can see here around the legs and stuff, it's creating a nice effect of motion of the horse going around the barrel. So that's great, as long as you can get something in the shot, so preferably something really important like the horse's face or the rider's face or something like that to be sharp. Here we do kind of have some things in focus or sharp, but they are not terribly important things. We got like the side of the horse, the side of her leg, maybe a little bit of the face is sharp, but you come up, the shirt is blurry, the head is blurry, so this is a very difficult thing to do when you're dealing with low light and so much fast action. You have to use a very high ISO, which is going to end up giving you a lot of noise. And the other thing in this image is really depends on the venue you're at, but the background, I don't think that this part of the background is too bad, but having the white car there is a bit of a distraction. Here we see some lights, so you got to watch out for those sorts of things. Here, another moving horse one. Again, the legs look interesting with the blur. We do have some sharpness in the hind quarter and the thing, and the tail, the mane, whatever you want to call it. But a lot of the image is not sharp, and I think it just takes practice panning and being steady at those long exposures. Also, it's a bit underexposed. You can see how much room here between where our peak is and here. So this could be pushed up a bit, although we don't want to overexpose the shirt, which is looking overexposed. So I guess we can't push it without losing the shirt. Alright, nice action coming around the barrel, but I think again the cars in the background and the pole in the background is hurting the image. And in every shot so far I've seen, we're kind of looking at the back of the rider's head. I don't know why that is, but I think it would be more interesting if we could at least in some shots, see the front of the rider. And in this shot you cut off the hoofs of the horse, so that is a bit of a problem. Now here we have the cowboy sitting on the fence, and so I can see what you're going for with this image, but it has some problems. The hat is very overexposed. You can see here we have this peak, and we have some a little bit of a blur on the person too, so it's not quite sharp. And a little bit of blur over there. And I think that these lights right here take away from the main subject. Here we have an interesting self-portrait. So I love the idea, very creative. I love, I'm guessing maybe that this is the face of the photographer, and hopefully that's true. And if it's true, it's a great expression. It really shows us your personality. And sort of have we can't really quite make out the camera, sort of a vintage looking camera. And it's a setup shot. I can see here you've got some backgrounds going on. As far as the backgrounds go, I like that you tried to match the colors a little bit with your shirt in all those cases, but I think it's a little bit too busy. Is because you have a pattern on your shirt, and then we have a pattern over here, and then no pattern over here. So one sort of continuous background would have helped to simplify the image, and I think that you would have been better off without a pattern, because the pattern draws our eye away from this stuff. So I would have also maybe liked to see the camera a little bit, more down here where we could see more of the camera. And then I think that this is just, I'm sorry to say, a little odd, but I think that the better part of the image is up here on your face. Obviously the book with your picture on it, and this nice triangle here, all of this I think works great. So let's see if we can give it a crop, even if I keep it at a 4:6 ratio. I'd like to get a little more of it in, maybe even down to the elbow, but I don't want to come down too far on this side. So I'm going to go with that, and I think maybe I'll go a little bit over this way, get you a little more in the third. Yeah, something like that. And now the only problem is, the difference in the background and this little hole that we see up here in the background. Like I said, I think what you did with yourself is just great. You're very creative. Keep it up. Here we have a macro shot, and macro photography is very difficult because whenever you get really close to a subject, you lose depth of field. So you have to end up using a smaller aperture, like maybe f/16, to try to get some of that depth of field back. Now the problem with that is it brings back a lot of detail from your background. So in a macro shot, we would like to not have as much detail in the background. A softer, more out of focus background would be less distracting to our object. And this looks like a pretty good sized flower. So all in all, you did pretty good. It's just really hard to do a good job with this. Let's talk about the background again. It's not quite as out of focus as I would like it to be. We can see kind of a lot of what's going on back there, and especially these 3 white spots right here. They really pull your eye away from the flower. The only way you can sort of try to get the flower in focus and have less focus on the background is to do something called focus stacking, where you shoot this image in slices, taking thin slices of focus through the flower, and then using a special program like Zarine Stacker or Helicon Focus to stack the images together, and then you end up with a more out of focus background. But that takes a lot of work and practice. It's not exactly an easy thing to do. But that would help with the background in this case. Now, as far as the flower is concerned, I think you did a really good job with getting the focuses nice and sharp down here in the middle. Even the petals seem to be pretty much in focus, so you did a great job with the flower. And so that goes back to what we were originally talking about. Because you did such a great job with the depth of field of the flower, that's why we're seeing so much of the background. And I think focus stacking is about the only thing that would help you with that problem. Now, as far as the exposure on the flower, we do have some overexposure, especially on the white petals. You can see here, this is overexposed, and that's overexposed. And on the shadow side, this might be a bit dark. So one thing you might want to try next time you do some macro is to bring with you a reflector and a diffuser. So if you have strong sunlight coming from one side that could overexpose your white edge. You could put a diffuser on this side to help knock that down and soften the light and spread it out more evenly throughout the leaves, throughout the flower. And then on the opposite side, if it seems like it's a little dark and it needs a little punch, you could put the reflector to kick some light back in and brighten up the dark side. Or you could use some off-camera flash and try to light up the flower that way. But either way, I think this flower needed some lighting. So those are some more advanced macro things that you might want to experiment and practice with, but I think it would help this image. Here we have a couple of American flags and some trees. Technically, I suppose the image is okay. The flags are in focus. The background is a nice blue. It's not overexposed at all. So there's no technical problems. It's just not an exciting image. You know, what are you going to say about it? Here we have a building. We have grass in the front. I'm not quite sure why. Or if maybe you were trying to show us an interesting point of view. I don't know if were you laying on the ground, shooting through the grass. If so, it's a nice experiment. I don't know that it really worked, but again, the exposure on the image looks fine. You got a nice sky, blue without any overexposed areas. The sharpness is fine. You just have to watch out and for mergers and things like that. So this weather vane is merging with the building in the background, so maybe a little bit different angle would take care of that. We would like to see a little space between there. And I'm not sure the image has a lot of impact or is all that storytelling. But technically it's an alright image. Now this one at least is a little more interesting. It's taken at a different angle. We can see you know, more of the architecture of the building, and there's no merger like in the last one. The sky still has a good exposure, so I tend to like this one a bit more. It is still nice and sharp, and the exposure is looking pretty good, not overexposed. So of the two, I preferred this one. And you have the steeple in the rule of thirds, and then you have this flag over here as counterweight. So I think that's helpful also. Balances the image from one side to the other, and also sort of a diagonal line. So I think the composition of this image works much better. Here we have an example of framing, and it was good. It was nice to try this effect. Here we have this acting as a frame as we look at these flowers in the garden. If we zoom in, I don't know if this was highly cropped or if this is just because it's a small image, but seeing a little bit of artifacting. It could just be the size of the image that was uploaded online. And it doesn't seem like we're getting a whole lot of detail in the red flowers. These are lupin, I imagine, and they're not quite fully in bloom. So, and I think that this hot spot over here is a distraction. Here we have a picture of a sign. The good things that you've done is that, you know, the exposure on the sky is good, and you've created a nice leading line, a nice diagonal, where this sign is sort of pointing down the street and it's telling us the name of this place. You know, so in that way it's good. I think it's a nice record shot of this, but I think what it does is it makes you say, wow, it looks like an interesting street. I'd like to see more of the actual street and not the sign. So, and also especially since the buildings back here are out of focus, This is the center of interest. You do read the sign. I don't know. To me, I think I'd want to see what's down here on the street. Here we have a fountain. Looks like the technical things are pretty good, with the sky is looking good, and the exposure and the sharpness. You caught it with a fast shutter speed because the water droplets are like frozen in midair, and you know, an interesting practice image or record shot. I don't see it as being very artistic or creative, but you know, you did most things right. I just think you needed a better subject. Here we have a very interesting subject. I really like the way that this was shot. Marco always comes through with some great stuff. I like that anytime you have a triangle and things in threes, that always helps with your composition. And I like, of course, the blue lighting. It's very interesting, sort of fiber optic looking lighting. And I like how it reflects a lot in the windows back here. And these are all nice leading lines, bringing our eyes up to a central point up here at the top. So all that is really working for you. But now I'll tell you what I don't like. This light is killing your image, in my opinion. Because this is all real nice and interesting, and then we have this big white light that takes our eye away from all of this interesting stuff. And it's unfortunate, but you know, sometimes it's hard to avoid these things. Maybe you could have found an angle where you could have gotten this pole to block the light. That might have helped, but then again, maybe you would have lost this triangle. You know, it's difficult when you're in these situations. I think maybe you did the best you could with the situation you had, and I like what you did, except for that light. And there's not really much. You can't really clone it out because this the fiber optics kind of come down into it, and darkening it probably still wouldn't help it. But and I think if we cropped it, it would ruin the whole composition. So good image, good try, and a great shot for yourself. But as you know, for a contest image, that light is killing you. Here we have another Marco image, and he always shows us an interesting point of view. And I think that's what's really great about this image. Anytime you can show people something from a unique point of view that we're not used to seeing it, it makes for a nice, impactful image. And we got a super wide angle, possibly fisheye lens going on here, and it's really showing us the whole environment. It makes a nice environmental portrait of this person. I like how the food is very, you know, lined up in order, pretzel and then whatever that is, and it's done the same way in both images. And we can see luggage, and that's sort of a part of the story. They're traveling, maybe waiting for a plane. The person that is the central focus is looking down at the food. I guess that works because it's sort of telling the story. It's sort of a voyeuristic shot where you're looking in at what these people are doing in their preparation for their trip, instead of, you know, her smiling at the camera. Composition wise, they are it's a little bit centered, but the person is a little bit more off centered. Maybe we could have had it a little bit more in the third of the frame. But it's an interesting shot, and it's pretty good. And I believe that is the last image, so I hope you keep practicing and keep submitting your images, and hope to see you next week. This has been Gary D. Tonnencourt from morethanasnapshot.com.